And we are live. Welcome, everyone. My name is Eva Bojorges, and I'm the Community Relations Manager at Docker. So I'm very excited to welcome you all to the fourth edition of our Community All Hands event. We have a very nice speakers lineup. We're going to be having a great event for the next couple of hours. There are more than 2,000 of you who registered for the event and are watching from all over the world. So I love to know where you're all from. So go ahead and post your greeting in your local language or your country flag on the chat. I'm posting mine right now because I'm streaming from Mexico. So we have a very tight agenda today. I'll be very brief, just some housekeeping guidelines. On the left, you can see that we have all of our channels, the lobby, the agenda channels, the tracks. So I'm sure many of you already had some time to explore it. For the first time in our community all hands event, we're having an interactive networking channel. Our speakers, our Docker captains and staff will be hanging out there. So it's a great way to meet new people. We also have an international area in there with 6 different languages. We'll have Spanish, German, Portuguese, French, Hindi, and Chinese. So I really recommend that you go and check it out. If you have any technical problems, there is a help channel. And our people from Tulula, the platform, Slava and Sveta, will be there to help you. So for the next hour and a half, we'll be here in the main stage talking to our Docker staff and hearing some exciting news from them. If you have any questions, please post it in the Q&A section in the chat so you can give more visibility to your question. At 9:30 sharp, we'll start with the community talks. So please check the time so you don't miss any of the talks that you plan to attend. Finally, we want to make this event as inclusive as possible. We have posted our code of conduct in the lobby. So remember to be nice and respectful so we can have a great event. So that's all from my side. I will be passing on the microphone to Scott Johnston, our CEO at Docker. Scott, take it away.
Thank you, Eva. Hello, Docker community. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How are you? All streaming in, sharing your countries. Thanks so much for joining us today. We've got a very exciting agenda of so many cool community talks that many of you have contributed, and we want to get right to it. As this is the last community all hands of the year, we want to do a quick look back on the year and a sneak peek of the year to come before cutting over to all the exciting talks we have on the agenda. So first up, it's been quite a year for all of us, and we hope amidst the global pandemic, you and yours are safe and well and continue to stay safe and well amidst the uncertainties. But it's been also a very positive year for the Docker developer community. And if you can believe it, now our community counts 15 million members as its community member. And so you're joining a very active, vibrant community of folks from all over the world. In fact, we count more than 200 countries represented in the Docker community today. And you can see this as you're streaming in through the chat and sharing your countries and sharing your locations. And we see you out there reaching out to each other, meeting up regularly. And we had a chance last to see all of you this past May, where we had almost 80,000 of you join us for DockerCon 2021 live. Now, it's been not only a great year for the community, it's been a great year for content and all the different images that you're using in your applications. And we'll start with the Docker official images. Now, these are freely available images of upstream open source projects that we build and make available on Docker Hub absolutely for free. And not just building the images, but we also maintain them. And so these are patched, updated, and managed with the help of upstream. And in fact, none of these images are older than 30 days. And in some sense, sometimes when there's a hot fix or a vulnerability patch, we make that patch available within hours on Docker Hub. And we're so excited that as we wrap up the year, there's now more than 160 freely available Docker official images for you to use as building blocks in your applications. It's also been a great year for our Docker Verified Publisher program. Now, this program we launched just in May this past year at DockerCon. And what it is freely available images from our trusted partners, from ISV partners, that they're making available to you on Docker Hub. And really important, these are free from rate limits. And so you can explore this space and use these images to your heart's content. And as we wrap up this year, we're so excited that just with a start from May, we already have more than 40 ISVs, 40 Docker verified publishers in this program, contributing and distributing their content to you, the developer, to use in your applications. Another really exciting aspect of the content that we provide is compose files. And so we know you want to get started quickly using stacks that are ready to go. And we have curated awesome compose, a set of compose application stacks out on GitHub that are freely available for you to use in your applications to help you get started out of the gate and see what a working example of an app stack is. And today, as we wrap up the year, so excited that we have more than 25 awesome compose stacks out on GitHub ready for you to use and run. And it's a community project. So we invite you to contribute, whether it's a new stack, whether it's an improvement to an existing stack, please jump in, the water's warm. And last, obviously open source is such a huge inspiration and a huge source of innovation for developers as they're building their applications. And we know that, and we want to make that available to you. And so this time last year, about a year ago, we announced a Docker-sponsored open source project program for open source projects on Docker Hub. And these projects we sponsor with free storage, with free networking, free egress, and with no rate limits. And so free auto builds as well, I should say, on Docker Hub. And so this is an opportunity for developers to explore the innovation of the open source community, which is a vast and wide and broad community of new tech that's coming out early and often. And as we wrap up the year, we're so excited to share that after just 1 year, we have more than 1,200 sponsored open source projects up there on Docker Hub for you to explore and include in your applications. Well, in addition to content, it's been a big year for product and technology at Docker. I just want to share a couple of the highlights here with you. Now, when we focus our roadmap and when we prioritize our features, we focus on 3 things for developers: speed, choice, and security. Now that's speed, help you ship apps faster. Choice, that's about you being able to use best of breed tools, the tools you want to use in your pipeline, in your build environment, as well as choice of deployment. Where do you want to ship those applications to? And security, of course, we want to allow you to do the first 2 without a lot of overhead and still have your apps be secure and not have to worry about vulnerabilities once you ship them into production. So this has been our focus. And again, it's been quite a year with your support and your feedback, but just a couple of the highlights. So first off, you're probably aware by now, but we've shipped a lot of updates for Apple M1 Macs, Docker Desktop for Apple M1 Macs. We started with a beta earlier the year, and we've been shipping almost every release new updates and new improvements. In fact, the most latest one is Docker Desktop 4.3. We no longer need the support for Rosetta on the native side. And so now you've got native speed in Apple M1 Macs for Docker Desktop. Dev environments, allowing you and your colleagues to iterate and collaborate quickly and ship your apps faster in a collaborative environment that's replicable and reproducible. Support for GPU-enabled applications built into the desktop as well as the server side. We've accelerated auto builds on Docker Hub by using BuildKit in the stack as the native build engine. BuildKit caching came online this year and is allowing multiple orders of magnitude faster build times. We just recently shipped pause and resume in Docker Desktop to help you pause when you're not using Docker Desktop and save some additional resources and then quickly get back to it. And finally, Compose, we completely rewrote in Go so that you would have ripping speed when you go and do Docker Compose up. On choice, this is all about allowing you to build your application where you are on your local environment and then ship it anywhere, regardless of the underlying architecture. And so multi-platform builds is something in BuildKit that we've been extending throughout the year, including most recently support for RISC-V. Choice of registry is really important. We know that Docker Hub is a starting point, but it's not the only point for storing and sharing application images. And you have given us clear feedback that JFrog, Mirantis, AWS registries are also places that you want to share your images and push your completed builds. And so this past year, we've been investing in interoperability and compatibility with those registries as well. And finally, on Hub, we've obviously supported IPv4 since the beginning, but just recently we released a beta of support for IPv6. And finally, security, again, the highlights, we recently launched a scope personal access tokens for your accounts so that you can assign specific roles to those access tokens. Image access management is a feature that allows you to specify certain image types and image categories to allow faster iterations with safe content. registry independent digital signing, huge feature request from the community. And we just launched an alpha of Notary V2 to show the way and give a heads up to our roadmap there. We brought vulnerability scanning to Mac and Windows last year. This past recent year, we brought it to our Docker engine for Linux as well. So now you type Docker scan your images right there on the command line, and it's taking advantage of our partnership with Sneak for image scanning. We launched audit logs for your accounts so you can see what's going on across your team, across the different images that they're iterating on and pushing. And finally, we announced SSO, which launches next week. And so this is just a few of the highlights. But as we wrap up the year, we've done more than 7,000 features, updates, and fixes across all of the Docker products and technologies. That's done with you together with your feedback in our public roadmap. And it's also done fast iterations with multiple releases a month. And we're so pleased with the support and enthusiasm we see as we release these. Now, to double down and accelerate this investment, to give you more innovation faster for developers, we did change our Docker desktop terms earlier this year. And what that means is that if you're part of a large organization that is using Docker desktop for production applications, that you'll need to pay a subscription, or your managers will need to pay a subscription in order to continue using that product. And we've been so excited by the response. Literally thousands of organizations have stepped forward and said, yes, we're more than happy to pay for Docker desktop, and here you go. And what that's allowing us to do is accelerate these features, and we're doubling down on new features, which I'll share in just a second. What it also means is that more than 50% of the Docker community can still use Docker desktop absolutely for free through our free Docker personal tier. And so it's a great example of accelerating innovation while still making it completely accessible for all Docker community members around the world. So as we wrap up the year, let's give a quick sneak peek to what's coming in the next year before we get on with the program of the day. So as I just referenced, the enthusiastic, more than a positive response we've seen around Docker desktop is enabling us to double down on that investment. You're going to see so many great new features come faster than originally planned. And that includes things like Docker desktop for Linux and file system performance and many, many others. As you might expect, you're asking for more and more trusted content, and we're going to give you more and more trusted content. And this means more Docker official images, more Docker verified publishers, more Docker sponsored open source projects, as well as the tools to be able to identify, discover, make sure those images are safe as part of your overall application, and keep them up to date and fresh. And finally, we recognize that you're using Docker with other tools for your inner and outer loop development. And we want to make that even easier, make that even simpler for you to integrate your best of breed tools. And we have literally thousands of partners that interoperate and work well with Docker. We want to make that experience even tighter. And so look for partner integration endpoints and extension points and APIs and SDKs later this year to help you and partners integrate faster with that inner loop and that cloud native development experience. And as always, we keep this 100% visible. We engage you and we ask for your feedback on our public roadmap, GitHub/Docker/roadmap. And we invite you to jump in, give us your feedback, submit new feature ideas, and jump in. The water's warm. We're always excited and willing to hear from you. So with that said, I just want to thank you again for a great year. We're so excited about the engagement, the support of the community this past year. We're so excited about next year, heading into what's going to be a phenomenal year for new features and new content and new experiences for developers. Thanks so much for joining us today. We have a great agenda packed with community talks. Let's have a great day. See you in the chat rooms. So with that, let me cut over to Peter. Peter, you're up.
Hello. All right. Always the joy of going live. Hello, everybody. Pardon me. So yeah. Oh, look at all these lovely faces. So hi, everybody. My name is Peter McKee. I'm the head of community and developer relations here at Docker. Hopefully you've seen my face before. If not, hello. But today I got some awesome guests on with me. We're going to talk all about Docker desktop. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing?
Wonderful. Hello. Good.
Wonderful. Okay. Let's go around. Why don't we introduce ourselves and let everybody know who we are? Yui, how are you? Great to see you again. Can you tell everybody who you are and what you do here at Docker?
Yep. Good to see you too, Peter. Yes. Hi, I'm Yui Kao, Senior Director of Product Management here at Docker. I've been at Docker a little more than a year now. Actually, my anniversary was November 30th, so very not too long ago. Before that, I was at VMware and Pivotal. Just super excited to be here today with the community.
Yeah, awesome. Wow. So anniversary. It flew by, right?
I haven't gotten a gift from you yet, Peter, but yeah.
It's in the mail. It's in the mail. Pardon me. I didn't mention too. I've been under the weather a little bit, so excuse my cough, but I wouldn't have missed this for the world. Justin, how are you? Great to see
I'm
you
good.
also.
Hi.
Mind telling everybody who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Justin Cormack. I'm the CTO at Docker. I've been at Docker for 6.5 years now. I started off as an engineer. My first product was this thing we made called Docker Desktop. And it's exciting to see it growing up and becoming a whole big thing after for all these years. It's amazing.
Yeah, awesome. I did not know you worked on desktop when you first came. That's awesome.
Yeah, we started off. It was on my little old MacBook, and we started from nothing, and we built it into a prototype, and then built up everything and shipped it just for the Mac originally, and before it was Windows.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. Well, let's move on to Jeremy. Hi, Jeremy. How are you? Mind telling everybody who you are and what you do here at Docker?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Hey, everybody. I'm super stoked to get to be on the panel today. So my name is Jeremy Castile. I lead product marketing here at Docker, which is a super fun and exciting role. Basically, we get to tell all the awesome stories about the really great capabilities and features and products we have here at Docker. So excited to get to talk about that today.
Yeah, awesome. Well, last but certainly not least, one of my favorite people across the pond, Stephen. Good to see you.
That's so sweet, Peter.
It's true also. Yeah, please tell everybody who you are and what you do here at Docker.
Yes, I'm Stephen Turner. I'm a senior manager at Docker. I've been here 4 years now. And I was telling someone the other day, I said I've been here 3 years, and then I actually looked it up and it was 4. I don't know whether it's just because it's so long I've forgotten, or whether it's just because we've all lost a year of our lives recently and we've all lost count, but it is 4 years. And I manage the Docker desktop teams.
Awesome. Yeah, it has been an odd 2 years, right?
It
was just that reInvent, and got a chance to see, I got to see Jeremy in person and got to see some other folks in person. So that was nice. That was wonderful. But yeah, definitely a weird couple of years. Okay, well, let's jump right into it. People don't want to hear me ramble on about the past year, but other than with Docker Desktop. So let's jump right into it. So I know the product and engineering teams have been hard at work this past year, building features, hardening current features, fixing bugs, those type of things. But Yui, would you mind talking a little bit about what we've done this past year, what we added to desktop and those type of things? It'd be awesome.
SJ hit on a few of these in his intro, but certainly a big release for us this past year was the support for M1 Max. That's been amazing. I know a lot of the developers who've made that purchase are quite happy with our support for it, and the fact that you no longer need Rosetta 2 with the most recent release of Docker Desktop is a really awesome progression. So full native support of Docker Desktop on M1 Max is really great. More recently, one small feature that I'm excited about and I hope people try is the Docker Desktop pause and resume, so that you can pause your entire desktop. I'm particularly hoping that that's helpful for folks on Macs who are trying to save their batteries before they join Zoom meetings and things like that. So really hope people upgrade to the latest Docker Desktop versions and give that a try. And another small annoyance thing that we've been investing in is how to be less annoying. We've heard a lot of feedback from folks about how the upgrade pop-ups have been annoying, and with the latest versions of Docker Desktop, once you upgrade to them, there are no more annoying upgrade reminder pop-ups. They're all kind of integrated into the Docker Desktop, into the dashboards now. So that's something I'm really excited that we invested in. So that's a smattering of things. There's just a lot more. Stephen, do you want to highlight anything?
I was trying to think. I think you've touched most of them, Yuri.
I have a question, maybe Stephen, Justin. Maybe folks don't know what Rosetta 2 is, and what, you know, getting off of that. How does that help us? Yeah.
Well, one thing it does is stop the little annoying pop-ups that Apple would sometimes give you saying this software could be out of date in the future because we're going to get rid of this thing, which was actually, so part of it was that was one of the things that prompted us to make sure we did it, but it was also just you know, internally making sure that we'd upgraded everything to be native. It makes everything a little bit faster. I think the UI was one of the last things to switch.
Yeah, the UI was the last thing. Yeah, I think we were waiting for Electron to have a native version, but
so that should make it a little bit faster. You know, a bit snappier, maybe a little bit less memory, a bit faster startup time, all those things, and yeah, you know, it's just part of fully finishing that native transition that that we did to M1.
Yeah, nice. Thank you. Sorry, Stephen, did I cut you off earlier? My apologies.
No, you didn't.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, so I got excited about Rosetta. Why, I have no idea. But yeah, so jumping back a little bit, you know, and this question is probably for the panel. I'd love to get, you know, your guys' thoughts, but what's so powerful about desktop, right? We hear a lot about, well, I don't, you know, I have the open source engine, the CLI, but I have desktop. Why do developers love desktop? And you know, what's the difference between that open source engine, the CLI, and desktop, and how does that all fit together? I think there's still maybe some confusion out in the community of what the difference is. So yeah, let me throw that out to the panel, and please jump in.
No, that's a great question, Peter, because we get a lot of people saying, "Oh, I don't use Docker Desktop because I don't use the UI." And of course, we had Docker Desktop a long time before there was even UI. The stuff that Justin was saying he prototyped like years ago didn't have a UI. So I think people imagine that it's just like we run the Docker engine and then put a fancy UI around it, but actually that's not the difficult bit. The difficult bit is basically you want to run Linux containers on your Mac or Windows machine. And so in order to do that, you need to run a VM. You need to keep the VM up to date. And you need to have kind of seamless integration between the VM and the host. As far as possible, we make it look as if you're working on your laptop, whereas secretly you're working in a VM. The containers inside the VM should be able to see your files on your laptop. So we've got to plumb them through. The networking from coming out of in and out of the container is transparently sent in and out of the VM. So yeah, I think that's where the real magic lies. And I think the fact we've made it so magical is actually like hides a lot of the complexity, and people don't realize this is all going on underneath. But yeah, everything's in this VM which we're maintaining. And yeah, plumbing it seamlessly through to the host.
Yeah, and patching it and upgrading it and releasing the updates and all those things as well.
Yeah, I heard recently someone say like the fact that we look at VPN issues and how to make sure that the VM and containers still work even through their VPN issues, like justifies Docker Desktop to them entirely.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, it's funny, Stephen. When I first started using desktop, 2016 or something like that. Yeah, I didn't really understand containers. I didn't realize these are Linux processes running on my Mac, right? Yeah, and then I made the mistake thinking, well, we have VMs. Why do we need this? Until it clicked in my brain. And yeah, awesome. Well, that kind of jumps into or leads into some of the licensing changes that we had in August 31st. So maybe Jeremy, let me ask you what you know, we touched on it a little bit on but maybe you can speak a little bit about who needs to get a license, who doesn't, what's that criteria, and again, how that applies maybe to our open source tools as opposed to desktop. Sorry, that's a huge question there, but
no, absolutely, that's great. Yeah. And SJ touched on this a little bit. So back in August, we did announce updates to our product subscription. So part of that change was that Docker Desktop does now require a per user paid subscription, either pro, team, or business, for professional use in large companies. And we define large companies as larger than 250 employees or greater than 10 million in annual revenue. So if you do meet that criteria for a large business and you've installed Docker Desktop, then you need a paid subscription that starts for as little as $5 per user per month.
Awesome. So if I'm using the engine, I'm running on Linux, do I need a license?
No, you don't. You don't need a license for any of the open source components. Any of that, there's no impact for you for if you're just using the open source components.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Please, guys, anybody out there, if you have more specific questions, reach out to us, get on Slack, reach out to us. We'd love to help. But that is go ahead, Jeremy, please.
I was just going to say also, it's important to point out that Docker Desktop it still remains free for small businesses, right? So essentially anything below that. So if you have fewer than 250 employees and less than 10 million in annual revenue, or for personal use, education, non-commercial open source projects, Docker Desktop remains free for all those use cases.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's important to touch on too, Docker Desktop was never open sourced, right? It's always been free, right? So we've been generously giving it to the community, and we love that, right? But yeah, it was never open source, so we didn't close source it, right, so to speak. Awesome. Okay, one of my next favorite topics. I've been waiting forever. I know that the community is chomping at the bit, so to speak, about Linux, desktop on Linux. Justin, I'm gonna throw this one to you. Yeah, can you give us an update on desktop for Linux, please?
We're working on that. There's a lot of work going on. We've been getting a lot of feedback from you about what you want, and we'd love more feedback. We've ported a bunch of the code, so lots more of it works now, and we are working on performance tests to make sure that it does have the performance you want. And there's some work we're doing there, and we'll be working on having a prototype for you for some of you to test the performance pieces as well. But it's coming along nicely. We could probably do some sneak demos of it at some point, which would be fun. But we're definitely making progress with it. We want to get it right. It's important for us that it's kind of an alternative to just using Docker Engine, so it's got to be clearly better than Docker Engine for everyone, not worse. So we don't want to release it when it's not right. So that's why we're working on it like that. Stephen, have you got anything else to add?
Yeah, I mean, some of the other, we've had a lot of requests for desktop Linux. At first we didn't. So when Justin was going back, Justin, to when you were making the early versions of Docker Desktop, I mean, it didn't have much advantage over just Linux Engine and CLI, except that it ran on your Mac or Windows machine, so it was doing all this magic. But in those days, it didn't add any extra functionality. But now, apart from all that magic, it also has it has the UI, which is some people only want to use the CLI, but a lot of people love using the UI. It's got things like the Kubernetes integration, which we haven't mentioned yet, like one click to turn on Kubernetes. And yeah, so there is additional functionality which we've been developing in desktop and hasn't really. We now want to provide that to our Linux users as well.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, so there's a couple of questions about that. So we will announce beta signups, but you can, if you how are we going to be doing beta signups for our developer program?
Well, we don't have a list yet, but what you can do is follow the roadmap item. So if you go to our Docker roadmap on GitHub, there's a list of, there's feature requests from the community, but there's also a list of the things that we're currently developing. One of those is desktop Linux. So if you watch that thread, then you'll be the first to know.
Awesome.
Oh, you just pasted in the chat.
Yeah, thank you, Ewan.
That roadmap issues 39. That's the one to follow.
So Justin, we have a question, and I'll kick it over to you. But how is Docker Desktop different from the CLI?
Yeah, so I mean, as Stephen was explaining earlier, there's a lot of components, and if you just install the CLI on a Mac, you can't actually run a Docker container on the Mac because it needs the whole Docker engine virtual. It needs a virtual machine to run the Docker engine, and it needs all the pieces that put all those bits of magic together. So, for example, if you just run a VM and you run Docker engine in that, you've got to connect them together over the network, and then when you run a container, it won't publish its network ports back to the host because that's all magic that's done by Docker Desktop. So all those features together, all the file system plumbing and the networking plumbing and everything is what makes it just magically work, as if the CLI just magically works. But if you just install the CLI, it doesn't just magically work. It is in fact totally different. So it's a way, as Stephen was saying, it's a way of giving an illusion that it's exactly the same, but it's actually, there's a huge amount of components that makes it work like that.
Yep. Great technology is what appears as magic. That's not the quote, but it's something, something like that.
So Peter, I wanted to answer this question, comment from Ryan Anderson, who was saying educational use within a university is slightly confusing on Docker Desktop. So some of the common questions we've heard of is, or who is it free for at a university? It's free for students. It's free for professors and instructors. That classroom use. That sort of thing, that's all free at a university. If you're a researcher, research assistants, all free at a university. If you are an internal IT department developing apps for your university, like enrollment, that sort of thing, that part would require purchase of Docker Desktop if you are larger than 250 employees and your institution is more than 10 million in annual revenue. But we do have discounts for available for that part as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that was one of the questions I wanted to hit on. It's a second one is, will Linux version of Docker Desktop be open sourced? I'll just throw that out to.
It'll be the same licenses as the Docker Desktop for Mac and Windows.
Yes.
So awesome.
No. So no. Get them, you.
Many of the underlying components are open source, but the product as a whole is not.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's about all we have for today. Anybody have any closing thoughts? If not, yes, please, Stephen, go ahead.
Have we got time? There's one more thing we forgot to talk about.
Yeah, for sure.
VirtIOFS I really want to talk about.
Oh, please,
we know that a lot of people are on Mac have complained about the speed of file sharing across the my phone's ringing, sorry about that, across the VM boundary. So if you're sharing files from inside, it's okay if you're using a named Docker volume, but if you're sharing files from your host into the containers, which is normal if you're editing source code on your machine or something, then there can be file performance speed, especially if you've got lots and lots of file access, lots of little files. So we've had several attempts over the years to improve this. We've got a new technology which looks really, really promising. As long as you're using macOS 12 Monterey, we have a prototype at the moment which you can find on another roadmap item. Yui probably knows the number, I don't. Yes, so that uses technology called VirtIOFS, which is about basically memory sharing between the host and the VM, and it looks a lot faster. We've had very, very good feedback from a lot of people. There are still some. I wouldn't use it in production. There's still a couple of crashes we know about, and some of them actually we're working jointly with Apple to fix because they cross the boundary between us and macOS. But yeah, if you want to try it out and give us your feedback on the speed, then please do. We've had good feedback about it so far, so we think that's the way forward.
Yeah,
awesome.
It's issue number 7 because it's been around for so long.
There you go. Thank you, Yuri.
I also wanted to highlight one other roadmap issue that we recently added. We're kind of exploring potentially extensions to Docker Desktop. We're really interested in hearing from the community what sort of integrated extensions they'd love to have with Docker Desktop. And so by that, I mean, like, what additional complementary development tools do you already install alongside Docker Desktop to get going? Maybe even you set up a bunch of aliases too, so that it feels local to complete your dev environment. So if you all could take a look at that roadmap item 290, which I linked in the chat, would really love feedback from the community about what would be interesting and helpful there.
Yes, please, please. I'm extremely excited about this. I think this is a really cool feature that could really, really help the community. Yeah, and I was thinking you too. What would folks out there use it for? I'm sure there's things that we're not even thinking about, or at least me. Let's put it that way. Awesome. So we did get a question about Docker Swarm and what's the future of it. Anybody want to tackle that one?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there are new features being shipped in Swarm. Morantis in particular is developing them. There will be there's a bunch of new features around CSI, the container storage interface in Swarm, which we're going into the next release. The code's kind of just been upstreamed recently, so there is stuff going on there. Absolutely.
Awesome. Pardon me. Too, we have a question about certifications with Docker. I can jump in that. Maybe Justin, you have some more background on the relationship, but I know the certification went over with Morantis. I don't have insight into that partnership or what they're doing moving forward with that. But yeah, so I think Morantis owns that right now. But I believe they changed it from perhaps a Docker certification to more a container certification. But Justin, you and anybody else have any more insight into that?
I know we've been having discussion. We had some discussion with them, but I don't know what the current status is. I think if people are interested in certification, it's something that please add that to the roadmap. It's not something we actually have on there at the moment, but we'd be interested in what you want, because I know we have had a bunch of people asking about this, and the roadmap's a great place. It's not just for technical features. It's overall ecosystem features. Everything else kind of features as well. So don't feel that you can't, you don't feel that it's not appropriate to put there. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not in the way of certifications, but our Docker captain, Brett Fisher, he's got a great Udemy course. And so if you're just interested in learning about Docker, I'm a fan of this particular Udemy course. So shout out to Brett Fisher for putting that together. And I think a lot of the other captains have courses and trainings and things like that out there. But there's a lot of education out there too, not just certifications.
Yeah. Perfect. And selfishly also put in there what specific education you're looking for, what training you're looking for. We're finding people that use Docker and containers in very unique ways and have unique setups, especially for local. So I'm definitely interested in that. Would love to help out and build some content around that. So please drop that in the roadmap also. Anything else? The chat and the questions fly by really fast, so I'm having a hard time reading all of them. But did anybody see any specific questions that we might have missed that we want to address?
Someone wanted to know if Yui's got a Lego Hogwarts behind her.
I do. My son built this, and we didn't quite know where to put it, and I'm a fan, so happy to have that behind me.
Nice.
The one about the ability to mount container images of volume, yeah, I actually opened that as an issue a long time ago. I still think it's a great idea, and yeah, I think there's definitely a bunch of use cases where that's interesting.
So upvote that and provide your use cases.
Eduardo, you're welcome. We love you also. Thank you for loving Docker. Awesome. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. My apologies for my cold, but again, I didn't want to miss this. Thanks so much again, panel, for joining me. Thank you so much, community, for supporting us. Connect with us. Get on our community Slack. Get on our roadmap. Put in requests. A lot of the engineering team, our Docker captains and community leaders are in our Slack. They hang out on Stack Overflow. please reach out. Please feel free to DM me in Slack. It's very hard to help troubleshoot specific problems in your environment, but hopefully I can maybe get you pointed in the right direction. Again, thanks everybody so much. Really, really appreciate it. And I think Ava is coming back on. I will talk until, oh, there she is.
Yeah, I am here.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Peter. And thank you, everybody, for joining the panel. Now it is time to recognize some of our community folks. I have a presentation for that, so let me share that. Okay, here we are. And let me just find it. Okay, so we are incredibly grateful to our Docker community, all of you who are tuning in and participating in the community all hands. We really appreciate your questions, your comments. For the people, as Peter was saying, who are on Stack Overflow answering questions in the Docker forums, as well as answering questions. We are very grateful for that. To the community leaders, the captains, and everybody else who is leading the conversation, the meetups for Docker, consulting, solving misunderstandings from customers. We are incredibly grateful. Today, I want to recognize 4 specific individuals who have gone above and beyond everything that we've expected, and I think they deserve a mention publicly. So here they are. First one is Xiangdong Zhou. I hope I pronounced your name right. He is one of our community leaders, and I want to thank him for his contributions to the .NET Event Handbook. This is a handbook that other community leaders will be able to use for their own meetup groups, and for himself hosting a workshop on the Docker mobile group about .NET. So thank you so much. You've been an amazing person, an amazing leader. It's great to see community leaders contributing in many aspects. So thank you for that, Xiang Dong. The next one is Arjan van Bentem. He is the person who currently moderates the Docker discourse forums. He has been an amazing key player, bringing issues to the table to us as staff. If anybody's having a problem using Docker, he's always there to moderate, to fight spam. As you know, forums, it is very important to keep the community clean, respectful, spam-free as possible. So Arjan, thank you. And also thank you for driving the conversation on new ideas for the forums, improving the CSS and other tiny improvements like that. Definitely, we are so thankful. Thank you, Arjan. The next one is one of our captains, Jacob Howard. I know Jeremy was really thankful to you for helping us create content for Docker Desktop. We are extremely thankful and grateful. Your contributions as a captain go above and beyond. You're a great person to work with, and for the rest of you who are watching, who are going to be in the Docker Deep Dive track, he'll be giving a talk there. So I think it's the first talk, so stay tuned. Thank you, Jacob. You're amazing. And last but not least, we have Ajit Rana. He has been continuously creating useful Docker content in Collabnix. He also drives large parts of the community, including the community leaders program, as well as he has been key on the content strategy that our team uses. So Ajit, thank you so much for contributing so much to the Docker environment. And thank you to everybody for tuning in, for being here in the All Hands, for helping us, to all the speakers, leaders, captains. I cannot mention you all by name, but I am incredibly grateful. This has been an amazing year to work with all of you. So thank you a lot.